Hey guys, it's QuickyBaby and welcome back to World of Tanks, and today's video is going to be all about Soviet bias, a fabled meme that lots of the World of Tanks community like to throw around, I guess, when a Soviet tank kills them. Now, what is the idea of Soviet bias? Well, Wargaming is a Belarusian company, and as a Belarusian company, let me tell you, Belarusians, they're very, very patriotic, and so of course the argument is that maybe they want to try and make some of the Soviet vehicles better than all the others. And so what better way to show that off than deliver you a double helping of gameplay in top tier Soviet tanks. And firstly, we're going to take a look at the T100LT, and then I'm going to follow it up with some gameplay in the Object 140. Now, these two vehicles are extra special for a variety of reasons, but primarily because I believe the T100LT is the best scout in the game. At high tier, I'd rather have this vehicle in any scouting situation than any other tank. Now, while it doesn't have the best view range at 390 meters compared to some of the other light tanks at tier 10, which have got 420, and lots of the medium tanks which have 400 to 410 to 420, its camera rating is phenomenal because of the low profile of this tank. Look at it, it looks like something sat on it. It's become as flat as a pancake. How would the crew even work in a tank like this? I don't even know. But then again, I've heard some random statistic that in World War II, to be a Soviet tanker, you actually had to be pretty short in stature, right? I think you had to be, I think it was 5'6" or 5'7" and under to be able to even be a tank man or a tanker in the Soviet army in World War II. I believe that's a fact. It might be like an old wives' tale that I've heard. Nevertheless, having that short profile means that the camera rating on this tank is absolutely fantastic. You have, I think, 42% camera rating when moving in this tank, and unless you're firing, of course, the stationary is the same as moving when you're in light vehicles. And so 42% is absolutely ridiculous. What 42% means is that a view range of 500 is going to be reduced by 210. So that means 500 meters, you're not going to see them until 290 meters, and hardly any tanks, even with binoculars, are starting to push above that 500 meter view range, right? And so you get this absolutely amazing area with the T100LT where usually you can spot your opponents and they can't spot you, and it is one of the advantages of a light tank against a medium tank. Even though they do have exceptional view range, you just got to try and push the margins a little bit. The higher the view range gets on the enemy team and their camera rating, the more sneaky and, should I say, tactical you've got to be. So the T100LT recently had a significant buff to its rate of fire, and while its alpha damage isn't the highest, with on average 300 damage from its 100mm main armament, and the penetration on this tank is absolutely garbage. It's got 230 on its standard rounds, which are APCR, and 248 on its premium armor-piercing rounds. But believe it or not, those armor-piercing rounds are very useful because they don't lose as much penetration over long range. That's something that Wargaming don't really talk to you about. And that is that the tier 10 light tanks, at least their standard ammo, loses about 25% of their penetration over 500 meters. There's no other tank class at any tier that suffers so much penetration drop-off. And that's because Wargaming, I guess, really don't want light tanks to be long-range snipers. They want to keep them as these short-range brawlers or just as a scout, right? And well, you can understand that. What do you do when you get on a map like Kharkiv or when you're on a Stalingrad? You know, then you become a support vehicle. Oh man, that was a clinical takedown of that oh-ho. There's just absolutely nothing he could do. And then the T-54 Mod 1 comes over to try and take a swing at me. But luckily, some support damage from my team and finishing him off means that we win the woods. Well, actually, not quite yet. There's an FV215B that I just noticed. I'm trying to figure out where he is. And that is a very dangerous tank. Decent turret traverse on the FV215B. A fairly okay track traverse as well. But monstrous rate of fire, high DPM from its 120mm, and so if we're going to go get a fight here, we've certainly got to be very careful. Now, I guess, seeing how this video is talking about Soviet bias, do I think the T100LT is better than all of the other tier 10 light tanks? Well, maybe as a scout. Maybe as a scout it is, but I don't think it's probably better with regards to its combat capacity. Now, one thing I'd like to highlight here is just how important this change of reusable repair kits has been for heavy tanks. You know, at this stage of the game, nearly 5 minutes in, you'd expect the FV215B to have already used his repair kit, and then when I track him, I can just keep his tracks off. But one thing we noticed there is that the FV215B clearly has a very good repair crew because he was getting the tracks on rather quickly. And even though the rate of fire of the T100LT has been buffed, the fact that it still fires 7.69 rounds a minute with 300 alpha means that it's quite challenging to be able to keep the tracks off a heavy tank like that in a close quarter scenario. Yeah, that repair kit change, fair enough, it was great, but it was also absolutely crippling for anyone trying to really lock somebody down and dominate their tracks, and it was a real big nerf for, should we say, 1 versus 1s for smaller, faster vehicles against heavier, larger vehicles. But yeah, so was there Soviet bias in the T100LT? Well, no, it's really hard to say. It's a great light tank, but I'd say it's more of a great scout, because I think that the other mediums are probably a lot more competitive in the variety of situations that you find yourself, because let's be honest, in World of Tanks you need to have a flexible vehicle, unless you're playing something like a T95 or a T123, and all you need then is frontal armor and a really big gun, right? Oh, yeah. That makes me happy. I like killing artilleries like that. I was really worried that M4043 was going to get his gun round to be able to take me out. And gosh, in the first 6 minutes of the game, we've been on a bit of a riot here. We've pretty much been continuously firing for the last few minutes after doing a little bit of scout work at the beginning of the game. And one thing I'd like to highlight as well, when you do start to get towards the high tier light tanks, you'll often find yourself against only a single light tank on the enemy team. And really try to outplay the enemy light tank early on, because if you can do that and remove his hit points, you remove his vision from the game, and then really you can start to be oh so much more cheeky and aggressive. So we put 1 round into the T10, flank round, get his side, shut him down, and oh, this is just the dream right at the end of the game. This is exactly what you want to see. Now I waste a premium round into the tracks of the Tortoise, but right now what I'm trying to do is shoot through his tracks and into his hull. For example, if I was to shoot here, it would just go through his tracks and not go into the hull, so I wouldn't get the damage as well. We maximize what we did here: 6 kills, 6,000 damage, 2,000 spotting, but also this makes me realize how important combat capacity is. I'd say that Muravanka is one of the top 5 light tanks in the game. I'd say it's probably in order of Prokhorovka, Malinovka. I think Lakeville and Muravanka are there as well. Steps is also pretty good. But the fact that in this tier 10 matchup, well, of course it's a tier 10 matchup of a tier 10 tank, that we were able to do 2,000 spotting, that's not a lot. And considering how aggressive I was being, trying to extend as much of the view range as possible, that if I want to have a good game and be able to carry this team, I still need to deal the damage. I still need to kill the tanks. That's really where the big difference is between your tier 10 lights and your tier 10 mediums. That it feels like with the self-propelled gun nerf and the fact that artillery are doing so much less damage now but providing that supporting role, that spotting just seems less and less useful. And in an age where spotting is becoming less and less useful as the maps become more and more compact and we're not seeing so many Malinovkas and Prokhorovkas, more Stalingrads, Parises, those kind of maps when we think about it, then why not just have one of the most well-rounded and, in my opinion, the best tier 10 medium tank that you can get without participating in clan wars, because I still think the Object 907 is superior. Now, I've tried a lot of the different medium tanks, especially in the ranked game mode that we were seeing recently, and even though I didn't have the best crew in the Object 140, I would do better in it than I would in some of my crews where I had maybe 5 or 6 crew members. I was trying to play the Object 430, I was trying to play the M48 A1, or I guess it's the A5 pattern now, but then it was the A1 inside the ranked game mode. And I just kept coming back to the Object 140 and just realizing how much of an utter beast this tank is. It's got the rate of fire, whereas T100LT was firing that 7.69 rounds a minute rate of fire with 300 alpha damage. This tank has 320 alpha damage and fires 9 rounds a minute rate of fire. It's just absolutely ludicrous how quickly this thing can pick apart its opponents. And sure, there are tanks like the Object 430, which just has, you know, that tiny little bit of an edge with regards to its DPM. And tanks like the AMX 30B that also have an edge now, and also an 8-degree gun depression advantage over the Object 140 6 degrees. But I still feel that just the gun handling on the Soviet mediums more than makes up for the lack of that crazy, shall I say, AAA DPM. And then you go down, I guess, towards something like a Leopard, and you go towards something like an E50M, which really do have to make great DPM sacrifices compared to the Soviet medium tanks to be able to gain a little bit of an accuracy enhancement, right? And I just think that the best all-rounder, the one that I would want to have in any game, in any situation, any map, and have the flexibility to do what I want, and the one that I feel that I'm going to be more consistent in, has got to be the Object 140, especially now that Wargaming, bizarrely enough, buffed the turret armor on this tank, making the T-62A, well, shall I say, the advantage that the T-62A had, which was incredible turret armor, almost completely irrelevant. And in fact, have you even seen that many T-62As playing the game recently? I don't think so. I think it's pretty much Object 140s just tearing it up. And we're going to see exactly why coming up. Now, I was a little bit frustrated in this game. I spent the first 2.5 minutes pretty much doing nothing on top of the hill. I wasn't able to get clean shots down onto the T-124 and the VK, and so now I decide, well, you know what, we're a top tier tank here. How about we just go and chew up these heavies? And that's exactly what we're going to do now. We pop round the corner, we've got practically no aim time, we've got great accuracy, and we've got a crazy rate of fire. We lock down the Lerva first, then we lock down the KV-4, track him for my Jagdtiger behind. And just, what can these guys do? We take his tracks off first, he puts a heat round into us. I'm looking at the Foch-P, but I want to finish off the IS-5, but unfortunately we low roll there, so we're unable to take him out. Our loader goes down, Batchat shooting me in the side, WZ tries to be a little bit cheeky, and we take him out as well with this absolute laser pointer of a gun, or should I say a laser finder. We try to track the Foch-P, unable to track him, but spot him very well as well. With that 400 meters view range and a decent crew, you're really going to be seeing your opponents at pretty much max ranges on a map like Mines. Their camera rating isn't going to hold up, especially when they fire. Now this Tiger 2 points his armor towards us. Does that matter? Hell no, that doesn't matter. It's not really going to do anything for him. Jagdpanther 2, no. And just look how quickly you pick up the kills. Look how quickly you pick up the damage. In our T100 LT, we were having to continuously fire at tanks for a very long period of time to be able to punch out this much DPM. And even then, in the T100 LT, you've got that issue with penetration that you really have to get the side or the rear of your enemy, and you couldn't be going through the front of heavy tanks as reliably as a full-blooded Tier 10 medium is. Now, T124 comes around the back, he tries to shoot me, but did you see that? He fires into the gun of the VK4502 because the VK4502 was turning his turret behind him, I guess, to watch out for the E4. Wow, what a fortunate turn of events there. We were a 50-50 if he hit us to kill us, or just over, as we had 751 hit points compared to his 750 alpha damage. Now you might be wondering, well, why did I shoot the tracks and not the lower plate on the T124? Well, it's for this exact reason. I know that if I take his tracks off, I get his side. He can only turn his turret 90 degrees to the left, 90 degrees to the right. And so that means that if I get his tracks off twice, then he's just completely gone. And in those kind of situations, maybe the T100 LT wouldn't have been able to keep his tracks off the whole time. But something like an Object 140, with its higher rate of fire, firing pretty much 1.5 rounds a minute extra, clearly can. Now you might be noticing I'm firing heat rounds here at a Tier 9 tank destroyer. Now why am I doing that? Well, he's got 40 millimeters of all-round armor on the front of his tank, and well angled like that, our armor-piercing composite ridge rounds are going to bounce every single time unless I hit the cupola on top of his vehicle. But normalization, or shall I say, yeah, normalization in World of Tanks, heat rounds will penetrate 85 degrees of armor. This is something that I've only learned in the last 6 months as to just how much, well, shall I say in the last year since Swedish tank destroyers were put in, just how much better premium rounds and specifically heat rounds are, and kind of pay to win when you think about it. Heat rounds will penetrate up to 85 degrees of armor, whereas your armor-piercing rounds will penetrate 70 degrees, and they have 5 degrees of normalization, i.e. 75 degrees of armor. Whereas APCR will penetrate 70 degrees, and I believe they have 3 degrees of normalization, meaning that they're only going to penetrate up to 73 degrees of angled armor. So heat rounds easily able to go through the front of Swedish tank destroyers unless they're hyper angling their armor. So is the Object 140 clearly better than all of the other Tier 10 medium tanks, as you would expect if there is Soviet bias in World of Tanks? Well, I don't think that is the case. And while I think it's a very well-rounded Tier 10 medium tank, it doesn't really have any best-in-class statistics, but then again, there's nothing that this tank is terrible at, I guess. And considering this game is played by mostly Russians, and that's the largest part of the player base, I guess it's understandable why tier 10 Soviet medium tanks, heavy tanks, and even light tanks might be good. But I wouldn't go as far as to say that there was any kind of Soviet bias, but I'm sure that a lot of you with your tinfoil hats on are gonna let me know otherwise in the comments down below. But there's no doubt that it's something extra fun to shout out whenever you get killed by a Soviet tank, right? Hey guys. So our first round in the T100 LT was an ace tanker for 1,424 base experience points. We also pick up a high caliber for 6,390 damage dealt, over twice what anyone else on the team was able to achieve. We get a scout medal. Wow, what a surprise for the best scout tank in the game, right? 10 vehicles spotted, and our 6 kills also manages to pick us up a top gun. Did we lose credits this game? Wow, no. Oh, I was using a personal reserve there though. So I guess while I made 71,000 credits profit while using the reserve, if we take the 42, okay, we still make just under 30. That's not bad. And next up in the Object 140, a high caliber and a top gun for 5,891 damage dealt and 7 kills. This time, 1,542 base experience points. How does that work out? I did less spotting, less damage. I guess I picked up a kill and maybe I was shooting some higher tiered vehicles. In this absolute riot of a 140 game, we've hit every single shot of those 27 rounds that we fired. And did we make credits? Yeah, we made 55,000 credits profit. And so do I recommend the Object 140? Well, clearly yes. I would recommend this as the first tier 10 medium tank that anybody would want to pick up. But that's like a blanket statement. There are some players who are better snipers who maybe are going to do better in a Leopard or an E50M. While there are some players who might want to have a little bit of turret armor and not be quite so fast, but have a nice pokey gun, and you might want the M48. But there's one thing for certain, and that is that I don't think you can go wrong with top tier Soviet vehicles right now. And so that's it for today, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. I'd really appreciate it. And let me know in the comments whether you think Soviet bias is a real thing in World of Tanks. Oh dear, what have I started? The comment section is going to be absolutely atrocious. And as always, thank you so much for watching. Have a lovely weekend, whatever you get up to, and hopefully I'll see you guys soon.